In this lesson, we're going to be talking about cybercrime. Now, there's a reason for talking about cybercrime. There's actually a couple of reasons for talking about cybercrime. One of the reasons for talking about cybercrime is criminals who are involved in this are using many of the same strategies and tactics as what we are discussing here. So while it's certainly good and useful to know this type of information, it can definitely be used for malicious purposes, which is, of course, one of the reasons why we study it, because we want to know what the bad people are doing so that we can protect ourselves against it. So we need to understand the different types of attacks so that we can understand how to mitigate them. Another reason for talking about cybercrime is one of the reasons why companies are hiring ethical hackers and doing penetration tests is because they're concerned about cybercriminals and their effect on their security posture and what their risk profile looks like. And here's an example of that. Does cybercrime really cost $1 trillion? So General Keith Alexander of the NSA is talking about cyber attacks and their actual cost. So cybercrime, there's no question, is a very costly thing. It's not only costly for individuals because their identities are being stolen, their credit cards used, credit card fraud, and all sorts of other information being made use of, not to mention just the resources of having their computers taken over and the time involved in cleaning those up once they're discovered and the potential loss of data. There's a lot of cost associated with individuals being attacked by cyber criminals. There's also a pretty significant cost to businesses being involved as well. So businesses can be the target of cybercrime, and you can see here from this article, they're suggesting that because the US and Israeli governments were involved in Stuxnet, that could actually increase attacks against US firms. And they're saying the U.S. painted a target on its back because they were involved in these attacks, and there's a suspicion that there may be retaliation against U.S. businesses. Now, it's been alleged for a large number of years that the Chinese have been involved in cybercrime, and portions of the Chinese army are dedicated to these sorts of activities. Not only are they involved in espionage from a governmental standpoint, but they've also been alleged to be involved in the theft of intellectual property. Several years ago, there was a pretty famous case where Cisco accused the company Huawei, which is a Chinese company that manufactures networking equipment. Cisco accused Huawei of stealing and making use of significant chunks of its Internet Working Operating System, or iOS, which is the software that operates its Cisco routers and switches. So Cisco has alleged that Huawei got a pretty significant leg up by making use of Cisco intellectual property. And this is a case where lines really kind of get blurred, because if the allegations are true, you not only have cyber criminals in China, but they are affiliated in some way with the Chinese government, whether the Chinese government is aware of it or not. Again, that's if the allegations are true. But this is something that's been alleged for several years now, and there are people who claim they have some significant evidence indicating that that's true. It's not the only place where cyber criminals reside, though. Cybercrime is all over the world, and cyber criminals are there. And the reason why is because we don't understand security nearly well enough, or don't practice good security habits nearly well enough on our individual systems or our enterprise systems, in part because there's no real return on investment. If you spent $10 million on security, you're not going to say, hey, I added $20 million to the bottom line because I spent that money. It's really sort of you throw the money away right up until you actually need it. So in that sense, it's sort of like insurance. You keep writing checks to the insurance company, you never have an accident on your car. It's kind of like you're throwing money away right up until the moment that you have that accident. So spending on security is kind of the same, where companies don't spend a lot, sometimes because they don't see the value of it, but in not spending that money, they open themselves up to theft of intellectual property, theft of resources, theft of money directly in some cases if you can get hold of banking information, for example. So cybercrime is a real big problem. And sometimes cybercrime isn't as straightforward as just criminals looking to steal something. Here's a case of the group Anonymous attacking Sony because they were protesting a lawsuit against somebody who was involved in trying to make alterations to PS3. So Sony sued that person, and this group Anonymous went after Sony. Now, Anonymous got hold of some information from Sony. Is that cybercrime? Did they cost Sony any money? Well, we do get into some blurry areas a little bit here. It's definitely a case of hacktivism, and it may also be a case of cybercrime. But there's absolutely no question, this particular case aside, that there are cases of cybercrime. They go on all the time, and law enforcement agencies are well aware of them. For years and years now, law enforcement agencies have started creation of cybercrime task forces and other organizations within these law enforcement agencies in order to attack the problem of cybercrime.